Let's be honest. When you think email newsletter, does your mind scream spammy, old-fashioned, or just another chore that I don't have time to do as an indie dev? Well, you're not alone. But what if I told you that that perception is costing you the most direct line to your players and affecting your future sales? Today, I am joined by Jordan Brown, founder of the OP Marketing Newsletter, and he is here to make a compelling case as to why email newsletter is not only relevant, but potentially the most powerful asset that you have.
A lot of people, especially game devs, underestimate email marketing or just flat out don't think of it as a tool. But when you consider that all wish lists are is email marketing, so if you had that email, you can do all those same things, but you have more control. In a way, it could almost be more valuable than a wish list, which is cool.
In this episode, we're breaking down what segmenting your email list can unlock for you.
It's hugely needed for lots of other email marketing things.
Why a newsletter can outpace and outperform traditional social media.
You know, social media is very valuable, but there's so many other things that are way more effective for the average game.
What platform and tools you might want to consider based off of your end goal.
Substack is great if you're a solo dev and you want to go for a more personal branding and provide value in some way.
And how to overcome imposter syndrome with your writing.
You know, this industry, it's very easy to get imposter syndrome, especially when writing something like this, because you have to put on this hat and say like, I'm this expert, trust me.
It's time to take the power back and own your own distribution. Let's build the newsletter and grow your game. Welcome to Freaking Cool Indies. I am thrilled to welcome my guest, the one and only Jordan Brown, the author, I guess you're not technically a host, but let's just say author, owner of the OP Game Marketing website. This is both a Substack, but also more importantly, an email newsletter. And today we are talking all thing email. So Jordan, first off, welcome to the show and great to have you on.
Thank you.
Amazing.
Appreciate it.
So I think to kick things off, I want to just kind of set the scene, and maybe I'll have you walk our listeners and our viewers through the what is the OP Game Marketing, like the newsletter, like what spurred you to initially start it, and from there, what can people find when going on that newsletter?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I guess it initially started as there was kind of two goals with it. One big part of it was I wanted to get better at my own job, and one of the things that you do in marketing, to be honest, is you just look at what works with other people, and then you try to do that yourself or make that work for your game and that kind of thing. And so the original very basic idea of the blog was like, well, if I'm going to be doing case studies on the marketing strategies of other games, I might as well write about it and share it with other people, right? So that's what it became. I was really inspired by, there's a Substack called Push to Talk, which is a great name for a newsletter as well. And that's from a really cool dude named Ryan, and he has done a great job with that. He's a much better writer than I think I am, but I always really enjoyed kind of reading his breakdowns of he doesn't only do case studies, there's a lot of other stuff too. And case studies seemed like something I could start with that was like, it's less dependent on my own writing ability, if that makes sense, because what I do have a lot of faith in is my ability to kind of research and find that stuff, and that's something I think I'm very good at. So I kind of leaned on those skills, and then at least the writing can take a backseat to just the value and the education that comes from that, and that seemed to work fairly well. So the primary driver behind the newsletter was I wanted something to drive me to do these case studies on other games to help me with my own knowledge and my own job, right? But then as it went on, it also became like an important tool for my own like brand and myself to kind of establish my expertise, and whether that be to my own team or to freelancing clients or whoever, it became this thing that kind of spoke for me, because I'm in this weird middle ground where I've worked now in the industry for about 3.5 years or so. But because I switched in between studios at the time, I haven't fully launched like any titles yet. So I'm both really experienced and in a way not, because I don't have like XYZ game I can put under my belt. I have XYZ game I can say that I worked on. But either like that studio went under, so we never shipped the game, or did a heavy pivot, or I've left that last studio. And so now this is kind of something that you can go through my blog as in a way of like a resume to kind of say, hey, I'm not, These aren't necessarily stuff I'm making up. This is research things that I've seen work for other games, and it's been a huge asset at work. Right, I have these case studies and these things that I can pull on that has hard data of why this stuff worked. And the name OP Game Marketing was just because I play a lot of like League, and there's you always talk this person's OP, that's OP, whatever, and I was like, I want to make OP marketing strategies, and so that's where that came from.
I love it, Jordan. You are absolutely OP, my friend. Absolutely. And,
Thank you.
Just from your, let's call it your 9 to 5, your kind of your normal day there. You're a community and marketing manager, correct?
Yeah,
currently,
that's
right?
Anyone who's worked at a small indie studio or a small company at all, for that matter, will know that you often wear many hats. So everything that falls under marketing is a lot of different stuff. But to make it simple, yes, I do anything and everything related to marketing and or community. And before this, I was at a company called Brittlebit Software. We were working on a PC game called Setback. They have since pivoted to a game called Jet Runner, which looks very cool. And now I work for a VR game studio called Breach, but doing the same thing for both of those places. Yeah.
Very cool. And I'm guessing, again, going back to you taking the time to build these case studies, that's when you can come to the team and say, hey, this is what this studio is doing, and this is what these people are doing. Absolutely. And the benefits that they're seeing, right? How can we incorporate that into our day-to-day?
Yes, it's helped a ton. And it's also just like sometimes I'll ask these fictitious questions of myself, or questions I've gotten all the time, of like, hey, I'm launching my game in 6 months. What would you do if you had $5,000 to market? And I'm like, that would make a good blog post, right? Let me think of a good answer. And so then I sit down, and instead of I have an answer for that person off the cuff, but it's cool. A blog kind of, or a newsletter. I use the term interchangeably.
Yep. Yeah.
But that forces me to sit down and actually like research that and back up those answers with actual data and examples and stuff like that, which led to, for example, the one that you had found, right, of this kind of rule book. I forgot how I'd phrased it, a guidebook of sorts to follow.
The indie dev survival guide.
There you go, survival guide. Yes, yeah. So like that's been a great one, because all the time on like Reddit or something, almost weekly, you'll see something in our game dev of like, I have to market my game. I just realized, how do I do that? And I'm just like, copy paste. Here you go. If you check this out, this is at least a good starting point, right? So
absolutely. To our listeners, first thing, I'll have it in the links of the show notes, and just scroll down or scroll over, but read it after you finish watching the episode. But that is, I was just cruising through Reddit one day, and again, I actually saw that exact same thing. Hey, how do I market this game? And I saw Jordan post in, and I started reading through, and then I ended up just sending him a message on LinkedIn saying like, dude, you killed all my productivity today, because I just got hooked reading through this article,
awesome.
And then obviously going back to his other work and reading through his other articles, and it's a great way of both building a follower and for the indie devs out there, right? Like it's having people come into your world and your universe that's different from a tweet or a devlog, or kind of the different ways that we see other games kind of market themselves.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned the tweet and the devlog, right? And that was also one of the things I hope to do too with the blog, is when you're an indie dev and you usually on some level you need to do marketing, right? But all you think of is social media. That's where your brain just goes. You're like, oh, I gotta do a devlog on YouTube because I watch devlogs, and I need to post on Twitter and TikTok and stuff. And that's certainly not wrong. And social media is very valuable, but there's so many other things that are way more effective for the average game. If you go viral on one of those places, awesome. You're going to get thousands of wishes. Like, that's great. But unless you're in the top 1% or something, like unless you're lucky, that's probably not going to happen. So that was a big motivation behind the blog too, is just being in the gaming industry. I have met dozens of people who, don't know what they're doing for game marketing. And I don't mean that in like in an insulting way of like, oh my God, they're so dumb. I mean that in a way of they're honest, and they're like, we are artists, or we are game devs, and there's so much skills that go into making a game. It's really unfair to have to, especially for like a solo dev, to have to then also be an expert marketer and have the passion for that and care about it. So it also, again, was like, there's such an abundant need for this knowledge, because it's not always an option to get a publisher or have someone else do it. Yeah.
Wholeheartedly agree. Again, I think it's a huge reason why even freaking cool indies exist, right?
Yes.
I saw a very similar thing, and in talking to devlogs, both in my own like Toronto area where I'm from, but reading you go on Reddit and you can spend days just finding people who have such similar problems, right? And I think the hard part is there is no one right answer, right? You can't just say tweet this and it works, and
No,
it's that's part of the hecticness, but it's also part of the beauty, right? And I personally am a huge advocate of again, email, newsletter, blog, whatever we want to kind of call it, whatever nomenclature it is, but I think it's just such a fantastic way of being able to directly communicate with your community of people who are interested in what you're building. And you don't and again, this is like, email is a huge topic, and we're not going to cover absolutely everything here, but it is an area that I want to continue making content around, only because, like, for a game dev, some people obviously aren't going to want to create content that is like, oh, an analytical blog post of like, this is how this other person did it. But there's also so many different ways that a dev can use an email marketer to just let themselves shine and give updates about their game and, what's going on for them, and build that trust in that community to get people excited about what they're doing.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I forgot where I first heard this. It might have been Chris from How to Market a Game. It might have been someone else. I'm not entirely sure. But I remember hearing this sentence, and it stuck with me. I was like, damn, that's kind of true. Which is that, a lot of people, especially game devs, underestimate email marketing, or just flat out don't think of it as a tool. But when you consider, like, everyone knows that, especially if you're doing like a PC game, wish lists are huge. Like, that's usually your number one metric you're trying to build before launch. When you kind of realize that all wish lists is email marketing, that's just an email list that Steam owns, that Valve owns, then you kind of see how valuable it is. Right? Because all that happens in that wish list thing is that when you launch your demo or launch your game or go on sale or whatever, Valve will ping the email and say, hey, your game is on sale and stuff. So if you have that email, you can do all those same things, but you have more control. You don't have to obey by the rules of Steam that says we only do this when you do these few things. And that's extremely powerful to have. So when you kind of put it that way, in a way, it can almost be more valuable than a wish list, which is cool.
I wholeheartedly agree. And again, there's such a tangent and rabbit hole that I could personally go on right now, but exactly that. Like, Steam owns, so you have a list of people who say, like, if they raise their hand and say, hey, I'm interested in your game, right? Steam owns all that information. You don't get to see who's opening up the email, who's clicking through, who's kind of doing all those things. You see the final sales number. But with an email, like with having an email list and building that up, even if it's slowly and surely, like, you still have the ability to target, okay, I'm going to send an email to people who didn't open my last one when I let them know about a sale going live. Or we just released a new trailer. I'm going to send this first to my email list to get them excited and feel like they have an exclusive part of the community. Or I need play testers for a new part of my game. I can reach out to this. Like, there's so many things that you can do with it. And it's such a great asset to own, because you can have 1,000 people following you on Twitter, or 1,000 subscribers on YouTube, or whatever it kind of is, but it doesn't mean that your tweet or your video is still going to get to those 1,000 people, right? People aren't always going to see it, even if they are subscribed to you. So something that goes directly into their email inbox has such a greater chance of that of that coming through.
Couldn't agree more.
Amazing.
Absolutely.
Amazing. And again, we'll kind of dive into, in the second part of this episode, let's call it, we're going to be diving into a few platforms that Jordan uses a different one than what I use for freaking cool indies, and we'll kind of talk through the pros, the cons, maybe which way might someone want to go, depending on most likely how like intensive do they want to get, and how advanced do they want to get with it all. So I look very much forward to that. But before there, like, you had mentioned that it's opened up a lot of opportunity. You've met quite a few people, or you've interacted and you've done all those different things. But where else have you found success with your newsletter? Kind of like, either where are you posting it, how are you getting it in front of eyes, and yeah, like, what does that look like from so far in your adventure?
Success in terms of growing the newsletter, or success because I have a decently growing newsletter? Which one?
Let's start with success because you have a decently growing one, and then we can
Okay,
shift
sure.
over to the to the other side.
Yeah. I mean, nothing like crazy. It hasn't changed my life yet. But I mean, you kind of summed it up there. The biggest and honestly most surprising thing, I already mentioned like how much I've learned from it, which is very tangible and very valuable. But that was the expected minimum, and that was kind of the really cool thing about the newsletter I wrote that finally motivated me to do it, because I thought about it for a long time. But many people, when you think of whether it's like a YouTube channel or something else, starting it, you kind of have like this, oh, what if I, do this for a year and my YouTube channel or my newsletter or whatever never grows and I'm just writing or making this content for no one. The cool thing about this was that even if no one did, even if I still had 10 subscribers, I'm still learning and I'm still like, this was valuable for me anyway. And so that's just one thing I'd say is those kind of things are really valuable when you get something out of it, regardless of if you're getting those viewers or not. So that was the first kind of the success there, was kind of learning. The surprising thing was the networking. I didn't expect that. Everyone from you who reached out, which is very cool, and I don't know what doors in the future that might unlock, and that's awesome. To Ryan from Push to Talk, that was a very cool moment for me. He was the kind of newsletter that inspired my newsletter. So when I first had interacted with him, that was crazy. Then a month or two ago, I had on Substack, which we'll get into later, has this referencing feature, as other newsletters kind of have, where you can, when someone signs up for yours, they will reference that person's. So Ryan had added me to his, which was a really cool pat on the back, that this guy that I really respect as like a game marketer kind of thought mine was valuable enough to tell his audience, you should check out this newsletter too. And then I've ended up earning him like hundreds of people who have signed up for his newsletter. So getting like a personal then LinkedIn message from him saying, "Hey, I don't know what you're doing, but keep doing what you're doing because you're like helping mine grow. You're doing something right. Keep on doing it." That was really cool. So kind of having these, this industry, it's very easy to get imposter syndrome, especially when writing something like this, because you have to put on this hat and say like, "I'm this expert, trust me." Right? Which is very scary to do when you don't have like 20 years in the gaming industry and 10x ship titles that have had millions of players, right? Like Ryan, who's worked at Riot and stuff like that, has that backing. So that was one of the really scary things for me, was to that imposter syndrome. So the networking and the confidence that gave me was huge. And then the final thing is, again, it kind of speaks for my expertise, where my experience or my like resume by itself may not, because I have this wealth of knowledge that's like right there. So whether that be like personally, if I was going for a new job or new clients, that's there and speaks for volumes for me. For my company, it's huge, right? When we meet people or potential publishers and that kind of thing, and they see who I am, and then I have this blog, that's extremely cool, and it kind of puts a little bit more like weight in our knowledge and trust as a team, that we can bring this thing to the finish line. So yeah, like overall, it's just gotten me like it's been something to back me up, that knowledge is there and that I can be trusted in that kind of thing, because you can read it, right? You can see exactly what I'm thinking and where my headspace is at. So yeah, education, opening doors, and basically being like an awesome resume builder, if that makes sense, are the main things. Yeah.
Yeah, makes absolutely perfect sense, and it's just a great way. Like you said, it's basically it's a second portfolio, right? Game developers have their portfolio of, hey, these are the art that I've made, or the level design, or whatever it looks like from their side of it. There's the indie game that I'm working on, but then I also have this side of things, and especially for those who are building an indie game, but also do have a dream of working for a studio. Like it's such it's a great way of also standing out.
Huge. Yeah, I did a to that note. So we have a monthly game dev meetup here in Trondheim, and I did a presentation called like why everyone should start a blog with the same kind of logic of like because I truly didn't know how it would kind of pop off, and it's not going crazy for or anything. I'm about 730 subscribers, but it's great. But even that was enough that I have dozens and dozens of game studios subscribed. I mean, probably around like 100 or more and stuff. And in the gaming industry, I can't tell you how valuable it is to have something like that, because unfortunately layoffs are a reality. Your game flopping is a reality. And, God forbid I was laid off from my current company or that kind of thing. Now I have this list of game studios that I can reach out to and say, hey, you or someone on your team subscribes to my blog. Maybe you think I know what I'm talking about. Do you have a job opening? Blah, blah, blah. And that's huge to kind of have that fallback. And that's just like me for the thing I'm in, which is marketing and games. But for a game dev or an artist, like same thing, right? If I was a game artist and I had a blog on, how I do 3D art in games, and every week or month I was breaking down how this works in that game and how they get the art to run well, or whatever you decide to niche in, that's so big, because it's pretty common knowledge to have a portfolio. And so everyone knows you should have that, but it's super competitive to have that portfolio and have this blog, because not only does it show that passion that you're kind of doing this outside of your normal work, but it directly shows your expertise, and less the final result, which a portfolio would give, and more the process, which is super important when it comes to work, because people often want to know how you work, right? And what that kind of stuff is. Because the portfolio, sometimes it's just a bunch of finished tutorials for it. Yeah. That's really common, right? So yeah, it's huge for opening doors and that kind of thing.
I love it. That's a fantastic answer. and again, I think I know we are very aligned on our thought process on this, because even so in my 9 to 5, I come from the world of customer success and customer experience, and just a big thing that I personally have ingrained in myself, and even as I'm working on freaking cool indies, is you don't know who's on the other side of that email, right? And especially if someone's using a personal email, things like that, and kind of being able to provide a great experience of people coming in, reading your work and seeing what you're working on and getting excited about your game. And again, you don't know if it's just a player who's coming in and getting ready, or if it is someone at a studio who if you actually knew that it's like, hey, this person created a game that I really love, and they're the ones reading your newsletter. It's pretty awesome.
One of my favorite things is, I get a little email ting whenever I get a new subscriber. And anytime I see that business email ending, I immediately go to Google that game studio. And there's been some surprising ones that I was like, oh my God, wow. That's crazy. So that's been one of the most exciting things. And sometimes it's literally the person's name and the business email. So I just go to the website and I can see that person's face. And that's really cool. So when I go to GDC or those kind of things, that's someone I can say, hey, do you want to go grab a beer and talk? And that's super, super cool.
Amazing. And yeah, total one more side tangent and something that I will do for a future episode. But even when something like that happens, of hey, I saw someone from whatever it is, Drinkbox Studios or whatever studio that comes, it's such a good opportunity to also just send them a quick message, right? Hey,
yeah, sure.
you send them a message on LinkedIn, with Twitter, X, or Blue Sky, wherever you want to message them, but just say hey, I just saw that you subscribed to the newsletter. I just want to say thank you. I'm a big fan of what you do, and this means a lot. And it doesn't have to be crazy. You don't have to ask them for anything. You don't have, hey, go wishlist my game. None of that stuff. But just a really quick message, and it's amazing the response rate that you will get from people that you would never suspect that you would have the ability to talk to.
I agree strongly, and Mike, I'm gonna spill the beans on your strategy, which I strongly agree with, which is just what you said. Message someone that you're a fan of, think is cool, but the power of not asking for anything and just saying, I'm such a fan of what you did, thanks. And then later down the road, you can ask for something, right? Ask for an interview or ask for wishes, whatever. And it's much more organic, and it feels better, and there's a give and take there, and that's super nice. And I think that's the way to go, because most people don't like to be bothered, and it can feel that compliment that you gave is wrapped behind something, right? If you kind of do the ask at the front.
Yeah.
Oh, I think I might be frozen.
Okay,
there we go.
Oh, there. It's it's the hey, thank you so much for subscribing. Here, wishlist my game, please. What I mean?
Exactly,
that I would hard avoid. If you're gonna send a message, just say thank you.
Yeah. Later after you talk, of course, feel free to ask them for whatever that thing is. But
yeah. I love it. Awesome. And I guess anything else that we want to add in before we move over to kind of the Substack versus Kit? Maybe I'm not going to call it an argument. I don't think I'll ever argue with you, Jordan. But the discussion.
No, I mean, I think we've made our feelings on how great newsletters are. We can talk more about like my personal recommendations and advice of like how you use a newsletter for a game dev and promotion of your game is very different than how I'm using mine as someone who's a game marketer. So we can dive into that later. But overall, I agree with what I said in that presentation I mentioned. If you're in the game industry, you should have a newsletter or a blog.
I love
Just
it.
flat out. You should.
And the last thing I do want to add in, because you touched upon it of like right now you're sitting at around 700 or 720 subscribers, but I also want to make sure that the audience knows that this is only in the span of like 6 or 8 months. Like really, realistically, not that long of a time to already have such a great pool and a great subscriber list. And that's also something that can work as a bit of a flywheel and just continue to grow and continue to build for not just game number one, but ideally game number 2 and 3 and 4. And as you're building your indie, let's call it studio, if you will, but as you're building your life in this sector, it's just like, it doesn't have to be something that's over the span of many, many years.
No, it doesn't. And even almost more relevant than the time, I'd say, is the amount of posts. Because, of course, if you're doing them weekly versus monthly or whatever, that's going to change how many you're outputting. And I haven't... Yep. My ambitious goal when I started was to do one every week, right? And that's kind of the like general advice you'll often get, especially if you're taking it quote unquote seriously. There's nothing wrong with that, but I think I survived that for maybe 3 articles. But the nature of mine are very research intensive and big deep dives, and they take so long, like outside of my normal work hours to do, was not sustainable. So then I ended up trying to do like bi-weekly, so like twice a month. And even that I couldn't keep around certain like big moments in my own work, or there's vacation or various things. And so I'd have to check, but I think in the end of the day, I think I only have about, certainly not more than 15. I think I have somewhere between around 10-ish, something like that. And that was still enough to net the amount that you're getting. And it wasn't at least for me, it wasn't a linear thing of like, there is a bit of, okay, each post gets this guaranteed, small amount. It was more these giant spikes. That came from predictable strategies that I have learned that I can, again, share later about how to grow that, if that makes sense. Yeah.
I love that. And absolutely, we will, let's continue diving into that conversation as we go. But for now, let us talk through. So once again, I am using Kit. It is formerly known as ConvertKit. And Jordan, you are using Substack. And they are slightly 2 different styles of emailing platforms and kind of blog platforms, if you will. ConvertKit, I would say, is more heavily involved on the creating a email newsletter as opposed to creating a blog. Now I know with Substack you do create your blog and it will live on its own website, but then you can also kind of email blast out that blog that you create onto into the inbox of your subscribers. But to start things off, what made you choose Substack? Were you researching a different platforms? Was this kind of the first one you landed on and it was hey, good enough? What brought you to Substack? I mean,
so unfortunately, the answer is not like terribly exciting. I just heard of Substack first.
Perfect.
I had seen what was ConvertKit at the time. And while it has it can be and is a strong email marketing platform, at least at that time, maybe it was the way I had marketed or just the way I was introduced to it. I had always viewed it as like a prime thing for people that had like like e-commerce businesses, right? So those people that, whether it was Instagram or something, you were like the link in bio trying to sell something. And it still is good at that, but it looks like they've heavily expanded upon this email marketing kind of side of it too. But at least at the time, that's how I knew that. So that wasn't even like an option in my head. I didn't know anyone personally or that I was following online that had it. And again, Ryan, the guy I've name dropped a few times for the Push to Talk blog, his was on Substack, and his is actually how I first found Substack. I think I had started reading his blog, and then months later, I had found out that was Substack. I hadn't. If you've used Substack and you see a Substack blog, you'll know from a mile away it's Substack. But if you haven't and you just like stumbled upon my blog, you would think it's my own like website that I made, right? And Substack's whole pitch essentially is, one of the strong things is, hey, you want to do this blog, you don't want to have to worry about coding or all this stuff. With us, you write and that's it, right? We make it look pretty, we do the email functionality, blah blah blah. Whereas if you do something like WordPress, which is more traditionally the old school one, even though it's not like hard coding or anything, you still got to do a good bunch of setup and messing around with stuff. If you do something like MailChimp, which is the industry standard in game marketing often for something free, still that's very heavily like just here's an email template, send out. Substack is this weird middle ground of like it's a blog / newsletter and kind of a social media. So it leans heavily on this community feature kind of deal. So in the end, it was just because my favorite blog that I read a lot, Pusher Talk, was on Substack, and it seemed to work well for him. And I started getting into the flavor of it. I'm a big person that tries not to doom scroll and that kind of thing. And Substack was something you could doom scroll in a healthy way. It had these really informative articles in the school environment. And so I saw more and more kind of places that I follow and I like getting on that platform in one way or another. So that's just what I happened to join. But honestly, it's largely just because the blog I was a fan of and stuff was using that, and it's a thing I was exposed to first, and I didn't want to get bogged down too much in the analyzing what is the perfect platform, because I always knew at the end of the day I can download those emails and move to another platform if I want to. If I want to do that, I could still do that now, which is great.
Yep. That's actually a really good point to bring in of like, I think oftentimes, especially at the start where you don't know what you don't know, is worrying of like, okay, if I start here, am I stuck here, right? And I think with all the platforms, I think Kit you can do as well, but you can always pull your subscribers and then move them to a new platform there. And I like actually what you hit upon of something like a WordPress or a Ghost or a different website host where, yes, it is still fairly easy, but it's also like, it's a kind of having everything done for you is a very nice way of getting started. And then if you are finding that you are enjoying writing these blog posts or writing updates or your kind of like your devlog of your actual game, then yeah, you can then spend the time later on to, okay, let's build a proper website. Because even for myself, like I built the Freaking Cool Indies website first. And then as I was going through everything, I was kind of like, probably shouldn't have started with the website, because now it's just one more thing to kind of keep updating. And then it's like, okay, well now I'm doing a podcast and now I have to do a website and I have to do all these different things, as opposed to like, shit, I should just started with something like a Substack where it can host my podcast and I have all my blogs kind of in one go.
It is. Yeah, it is. It does. And now it has podcasts. That was something they added just like a few months ago, right? And it's growing now. It has some video and stuff, and you can make a custom domain. It does overall look like, from what I've never used Kit, but from what I've seen of Kit, you do seem to have more control. There is more customizability there for sure. I think a big thing too that will sway your decision is like if you're trying to go the paid newsletter route, that changes a lot. I know there's a big Substack's closest competitor, I'd say, is probably Ghost. There's a lot of people that are choosing between those two, and it usually revolves around the paid functionality and Medium. Medium I was never a fan of because I didn't want to block my readers from access, and there's a lot of things on Medium that like you have to pay to view and that. But from the money making standpoint, if you're like trying to live off your blog or something, then that's a big discussion. But again, I'm not saying I'm never going to monetize my blog in some way. Maybe I would if I had 5,000 people reading or something. Yeah. But generally speaking, I will for sure always follow the rule of like the core educational content is meant to be for the people, if that made sense. So I wasn't terribly worried, and I'm still not really ever trying to like massively capitalize on it being some kind of paid massive income source. If you are, then I think that might change which one you're using, right?
Yeah, and I know Beehive is another is another platform. It's actually very similar to a Substack, where you get your own little blog website and the whole thing there.
Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah, and so from my perspective, the Kit side, so ConvertKit, you can still write what is like a blog post, and they have a thing, it's called a creator profile, which is technically your own little like website. I will say it's not the greatest. Like it's nice, you can do things to it, but it is quite restrictive. There's not a ton that you can do from a customization standpoint. It is definitely nothing like a like a WordPress website, where, you have full reign over what every part and every aspect looks like from it. But where I do really think that Kit shines is from its emailing and its segmenting capabilities. So I'm not too sure from a Substack standpoint. So you have one part of it, which is like, okay, this is my website. This is where people can come read my blogs, etc. At the same time, you're obviously collecting the emails of those people who subscribe to you. What does Substack look like from a emailing out perspective? Are you able to tag individuals? Are you able to kind of customize what those emails look like that go out to them?
Yeah, so before I answer this, I'm gonna caveat this with the huge I'm not totally sure. I haven't dug into that functionality because it's not anything I ever wanted for my personal goals. It's hugely needed for lots of other email marketing things, and for my on my professional side for my job, I do need that. We just started using email marketing for the game that we are working on, and we just started off with MailChimp because that's what they had, like the legacy system before I came in. And that has and needs exactly what you're talking about, right? Because the people that signed up for a newsletter that are local and want to come to like our company breach events aren't relevant for people that need to know about like a playtesting updates necessarily. And we don't want to send irrelevant emails and come across as a bother, that kind of thing. Or for example, they had on that email list too is press and stuff for a previous game. I don't necessarily want to send to press our really early build playtests thing if we don't really want press to kind of see that yet. So that's extremely important then to have. So I'm certain Substack has the very basic stuff of you can choose who to email, not, but I'm fairly certain it doesn't have segmenting and tagging and that kind of thing. It might, but what I can say with confidence is that it's certainly lacking in the customizability of that feature if it has it at all. That's not the focus of this. It is much more blog oriented, as you said, more than it is like professional email marketing in the sense of how like a business might want to use it. Because if you think of something like HubSpot or MailChimp, you can go as far to set up just layers of at a previous company that uses HubSpot, we had these automations of like, okay, this person signed up here and they, without us lifting a finger, they automatically are entered into this like pre-made email chain. If they get this email, then they click on this email, then they get this other one. If they don't, it waits 3 weeks and send this email instead, blah, 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 blah. And it all is an automatic thing. And you need that at like the enterprise kind of scale once you're getting, very, very big. That was way out of scope for anything I was doing. If you're just writing a blog and you want as many people as possible to read it, that's Substack. So that's, yeah. If you want to segment, Arent doesn't have full control over that. And especially if it's more about making sales and stuff, I probably wouldn't recommend Substack from like a e-commerce standpoint. It's more in that sense better as a blog delivered over email, as you had said. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, and again, so Kit does have a lot of that capability of the MailChimps where when someone subscribes, they're going to go through a welcome sequence, right? And to put it into perspective of maybe what a standard indie dev might see is like, okay, on day 1, we're going to let them know about me, right? Day 2, we're going to let them know about the game. We'll wait 3 days. On day 5, we're going to go and the first ask to wish list the game and whatever that all kinds of looks like. I do agree that a lot of it is for the enterprise level. I think where I would maybe push back a little bit is I think having that ability, especially from a game dev standpoint, is what I love about Kit is it gives you the ability to even do things like ask questions within your email, right? So as you're growing your list or as people come in, hey, why did you subscribe? Is it like, hey, I'm really interested in the game, or like, you know what I mean? Like whatever questions that you want, because then you can flow out. So if someone has, let's call it, raised their hand, aka they've clicked a specific link before, or they clicked the link to go to your Steam page, you can then follow up your next email being like, hey, you know what I mean? What did you think of the Steam page? Like kind of having a little bit more of a crafted conversation, which I also think is really, really interesting and cool, especially if you want to find play testers, if you want to do those different things.
That's super good. I strongly agree that makes sense because I've done something very similar in Substack, and yeah, it's minimal. You can for sure adjust like that initial welcome email. So if you want to put in a survey or something there, you can. But other than that, like I did do a couple months back, I did a survey that was just checking in, saying, hey, do you like these long form case studies or this? When I like interview devs and just trying to figure out for my audience what they like for the future. And for that, I just had to put it right at the top of the blog, right? It wasn't a separate email or anything like that. I just put it there. I could have said it as an email and that kind of thing, but yeah, it's so if you want to do that kind of thing, Substack is definitely not the best for segmenting and setting up those processes. No.
Cool.
I don't think so.
And can you do you have to have all of your emails be a blog, or can you just send, if like say you just want to send an email saying, hey everyone, I'm looking for feedback on what type of content you like the most. Are you able to just send that as an email, or does it need to be something that then like kind of lives on the site? I have a guess that you would be able to not have it public, even if it goes out in like a similar way.
I'm quickly checking to make sure.
Double check
crazy.
that. Yeah, no problem.
So I'm because I feel like there's some poor guy in Substack going to watch this and be like, "What is this guy talking about?
you asshole!
Tag emails, this idiot! He's ruining our company. This is 5 million views." So I did preface this by saying I've never chosen to pursue this stuff. So please, guys, check
you're
yourself.
Gonna become before you become Substack enemy number one.
Yeah, I'm going to stop getting subscribers because Substack's like, screw this guy. Yeah. So yes, you can publish it without sending the email. And so in that sense, there's subscribers and there's followers, and followers are those that like you'd show up on their Substack feed on the app, but they don't want to be bothered over email essentially. So that's who would see that. So anyone who happened, of course, to land on your blog just by browsing or in their like feed, they'd see it, but they wouldn't get pinged an email. So you do have that level of control. And I can make, but what is limited is if I wanted to just like send a non-normal newsletter, like maybe I'm just saying, hey, who wants to play test my new game or something like that, then yeah, I'd either have to send it in this weird way, like looking like the blog, and just kind of be like, hey, this is a different kind of blog, I just have this, or even I'd have to just manually from my email list. I think the real answer is I'd have to kind of manually do that tagging and stuff. So I can see all my emails, and I'd pull out those emails that I want to send that stuff to. So for example, if I wanted to, say I got laid off or something, right? And I was doing what I said earlier, where I'm like, well, I have all these games studios, my email, I want to blast them and say, hey, I'm looking for a job. That's what I do. I wouldn't send it as a blog post, of course. I'd remove every game studio email that I see and then send one big personal email blast saying, hey, I'm Jordan from this blog, blah, 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 blah. That's probably what I would do.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Very cool.
So pretty limited in that area from what I'm seeing, at least.
Yeah. And from maybe from an analytics standpoint, is that something that you are typically checking? Does it let you know, hey, this is how many people either obviously clicked in, but also maybe finished, or what are some of the analytics that you receive on your side that you find interesting?
Let's see. I'm just trying to think, like, if it's, I can share my screen if you want.
That would be
doing that.
Phenomenal.
So this is the kind of main page you'll be on. So again, you can go through here and most of these are personal emails, but then you're like, oh, who's this? So then you can see the game studio emails and that kind of thing. But for the stats, really from like a one-on-one level for each email, it's mostly just the activity, which shows like how many times they've opened it and that kind of thing. If I do click on them, I can see all this stuff. If they've commented, blah, blah, blah. So that's like on the subscriber side, and I can see how many people are, where they're coming from, how they're recommending my my blog, and like how much the people who are recommending me are earning versus they're earning me. So I often earn more people subscribers than I get, if that makes sense. So like this marketing, here we go. Ideas guy owes me some money because I've got him 134, but he doesn't recommend me, so I haven't got any. Whereas like push to talk with Ryan, he's giving me 80. I'd given him 103. And then on a per like post basis, it's kind of the typical stuff, right? I can see how people viewed it, the open rates, how many links were clicked, which links were clicked, that kind of stuff. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so I think it has all the analytics side is pretty good. There's nothing that I've seen like missing. And yeah, what you said, where it's coming from is very important in terms of Yeah, exactly here. Like, was it Reddit? Was it LinkedIn? Was it the email itself? Yeah, that's huge in figuring out why I got these spikes and stuff. Spoiler alert, it's often Reddit.
And if you go back to your subscribers one there,
Yeah.
what can we talk about that big spike right before February 5th? What in God's name did you do?
Yeah, let me see if I can. There we go. So this is one year. So because it's not, this blog isn't over a year. Yeah. So I can probably just off the top of my head, I think I know what these are. So I did mention at some point for mine, it wasn't a super linear thing, right? It was very often these, like, this might be like some linear posts. It was more of these posts that did very, very well that just
Yeah.
went crazy. So what that is when you think of marketing in the sense of that's, which is what this blog is all about, of course, is marketing. And that was one of the things I was scared of too, is that the marketing guy who's writing about how you can market your thing can't grow his can't market his blog, right? That would be embarrassing and suck. So I'm glad this is working out. But if you think of the end goal of like really what marketing is trying to do is put this product or this game or whatever that you've ideally already researched and you know there's a target market for, getting it in front of those eyes, right? Because it's research will tell you there is a target market, but then actually trying to get in front of that target market is a whole different ballgame. And that, at the end of the day, in very simple terms, is the end goal of at least marketing, right? Sales and stuff may then take it from there to like convert that, but your job is to get it in front of your target audience. That's where Reddit is fantastic, because subreddits have a subreddit is quite literally that. You know, if you are making a product for pregnant women and you go and r/I'm pregnant, there's your target audience, right? And so Reddit is extremely powerful and Reddit is a unique kind of social media versus something like TikTok or Facebook. But in that sense, you're not a slave to the algorithm and hoping that either by luck or over time consistent posting that you'll reach your audience. You could just immediately reach your audience. And so Reddit has been by far the most powerful thing. Now, Reddit is its own ballgame. Anyone that is a heavy Reddit user knows that it can show you great love just as fast as they can jump down your throat and be very toxic and that kind of thing. So you have to be careful. And people on Reddit, regardless what it's for, they really hate being marketed or sold something. They want value. And so that's what I did, right? I went on Reddit and I made these posts that provide value. And that's why, to be honest, it's been quite easy to grow this blog, because I'm not trying to get anything out of anyone. I am educating and I am providing other people value so that they can get what they want. And so growing this has been remarkably easier than, for example, selling or marketing a game, because that's trying to say, hey, the value is, of course, you're having a good time and fun, but still I'm trying to get you to buy something, which is always going to be harder than saying, here's this free thing. And then it helps you sell your thing, right? Everyone wants that, and it's free. I'm not even trying to sell like a course or whatever. It's just free. So yeah, those huge spikes, especially this one, is from Reddit. And I've posted on Reddit on most of these, and or a good chunk of them, and they often don't have that. There were two that I did that I can show here that were these very data-heavy ones. So my personal favorite one is the one you found, kind of the Indie Survival Guide. But the one that got the most, you can see the views here, 4,000 and 2,000 there, which doesn't sound like a lot for a YouTube video, but that's a pretty good chunk for a newsletter, are these ones, which are very data heavy. And so what I had done is I use everything from Gamealytic to Game Discover Co., VG Insights. These are all third-party data tools that basically like use APIs and stuff to scrape the public data on Steam to then either gets real raw data of like number of reviews and stuff that's publicly available, and or using like the box flyer method to estimate wish lists and game sales and that sort of thing. So I use those tools to then find that data. And so all I did, if I was really good at Python or coding, I could like do this stuff myself, but I'm not, which is the hole in the market that these things kind of plug. If you are a paid member of these things, you can essentially use their service to kind of do that without the coding stuff. So for this one that caused that spike, I had looked at all of the things labeled AAA, AA, and Indie in the 2024 game releases and just scraped all of that data and tried to find like what was interesting there. And I ended up making this, this big, nice Google Sheets that's allowed you to filter and customize and do all these things with it that you wanted to kind of see what genres are performing well over others, and which genres didn't have like a lot of releases but high profitability, showing that it was something you could not too competitive, that you could hopefully make some money from. And this went crazy on Reddit. I learned people on Reddit love digging through stuff like this. So the very data heavy posts are not as fun to write, but people really like them. So I was like at the top of our game dev and stuff like that for a while when I had posted these two that had these all these numbers. People love that, because I think what happens there is, if I do like the indie survival guide, there's quite a few like marketing agencies and stuff that of course post on Reddit and a similar stuff, hoping that you'll like eventually become a customer. So they're a little wary that this might be someone trying to sell me something or whatever. But when I just post all of this free data and I'm like, here you go, dig through it, have fun, I think you get past that initial hesitation. They're like, oh, cool. And they open up out of curiosity, and then they're just really impressed by all the numbers, and you can sort them, blah, blah, blah. And then, yeah. So yeah, that spike is from Reddit, and it's from these data heavy posts. So it's this, I had like a landing page for context to help grow the blog and stuff still. And there's plenty of people who just saw this and never went to the blog or anything. And then, these are all the games with the tags and the limits that I put on it. Segmented by like how big the studio is and stuff. This was the big one. A lot of people wanted to know what genres are doing well and how many there are, how much money they're making. These are all estimates, so that was a big thing to mention. And this it's got a lot of people talking on Reddit. There were a lot of jokes around a lot of the best games are not safe for work games. So there are a lot of jokes about I'm gonna make a RTS FPS not safe for work. Combine the highest genre tags.
Just a cozy not safe for work.
Yeah, exactly.
Cleaning simulator.
There was some interesting tag or genre suggestions being pitched if you just look at the hard numbers. And so that was also, again, for the blog, this was me skilling up and leveling up. I've always been good at research, but this was like a different level of data analysis. The easy part was getting the data, because that being a paid subscriber, those sites do that. But the harder part was like, what's interesting from this data? How can I organize it and filter it so that others can learn from it themselves as well? So I both provided this for game studios or whoever to go and have fun with themselves. But then I also wrote a blog on it to break down like what I thought was really interesting and stuff that you could learn from. So Reddit's been very powerful because I can immediately reach game devs, which is the core audience for my blog. And because I'm not selling anything or anything like that, I think it's a much easier reception than, for example, if I was like a marketing agency sending you to the blog on my websites.
I gotcha. Very, very, very cool. And VG Insights. I use VG Insights myself. I think it's a great website. I've used Gamealytic, and then I think the main reason that I stuck with Gamealytic was that there was some reason. I think it might have been that VG Insights doesn't show wish lists, and I tend to focus heavily on pre-released more than I do post-release. Gotcha.
I don't really have a specific reason why. I just often do. I think because more people seem to be concerned or worried or like wanting to know about how to gather those wish lists. So I look at that rather than like sales and stuff, because that's a different ball game of like how to sell your game, because then you're talking about discounts and blah blah blah. But,
and I think we also live in such a I am going to call it a shitty part, because I do think we let things go by very fast, but it's like once a game is released, it's also like, oh, that's old news. Unless it's obviously like your Balatros of the world and your Power Worlds and like, you know what I mean? Like the games that truly gain legs. But I think as a society, whether it's a game, whether it's a movie, whether it's whatever it is, I think oftentimes it's the lead up of it is typically what people focus on far more than once it gets released. It's kind of just like, all right, it's over now.
It is a tempting title too to have how I made. There's a lot of YouTube video devlogs, for example, that do this how I made $50,000 on my indie game or whatever. People love to watch that, but I've kind of leaned more on the opposite of like how this game got 200,000 wish lists or that kind of thing.
I love it. I love it, love it, love it. So anything else that you wanted to add from a more Substack perspective? And then otherwise, maybe we can jump into what we were talking about before of, differentiate, like as me as an indie dev, like how would I potentially use a newsletter if I don't want to be writing
Nope,
analytics?
nothing specific on the Substack war. I think I've made the Substack owners mad enough. Substack's still great. I just want to say, like, I probably said more negatives because of the question that was asked. But I do love Substack. I don't plan on leaving it anytime soon. It's been very convenient, very minimal work from me. Yeah. Highly recommend Substack, specifically if you're going, I think, Mike, you hit the nail on the head there. If you're going more of a blog that also gets emailed out, it's interchangeable whether you call it email newsletter or blog, but it's very good for that. If you're e-commerce-y, you want to have a lot of customization, not as good, but still highly recommend Substack. Still love Substack, so don't come after me, Substack stock owners.
And Jordan, before we jump to the next thing, the other thing that made me want to add, especially for those who are like, oh, I love the ease of Substack, but like I also kind of want something like a kit where I can, do these different things. Thankfully, we have apps like Zapier, which is such a phenomenal tool of being able to actually connect the two together, right? You can still write on Substack, and then when someone does subscribe, they get pulled into your ConvertKit, and then you can use ConvertKit or MailChimp or whatever other CRM to kind of get really in the grain and in the weeds on that standpoint. So don't shy away from, I only have to use one or I can only use the other. Zapier makes life very, very, very convenient.
Yeah, Zapier is great. You can do both. Eventually, I do want to have like separate websites just to kind of more formalize a lot of the freelancing stuff I'm doing. And on there, I haven't figured out exactly, but like most likely I would just cross post. I will keep my Substack because I want my Substack to be its Substack thing, but then I'll also just post the blog on my website. But it will be growing mostly through Substack and going out through there. But yeah, Zapier is awesome. A little hidden trick for those. One of the things I did that worked well for growing this blog, I haven't done it recently, but I had it set up for a while. I had a little ping that was going off where it would scrape the feeds of Reddit and the relevant subreddits. And anytime the word like marketing or other keywords was mentioned in like our game dev, I'd get a ping, and I would hop on that post to see if it was. I wouldn't do it for everything because you don't want to be annoying and all that kind of stuff. But if it seemed like a post where I could be relevant and add value and stuff and link to my blog, I would. And that's something that's worked well because that's, for example, how you found the blog. So yes, Zapier is great. You can get very clever with that tool.
I think that is an underrated tip right there, Jordan. I think that's a great, especially, okay, I'm building this type of game, like I'm going to set up a ping every time, you know what I mean? Something like that comes up, and then boom, you can jump in and do all that. Really, really, really strong tip there. All right, so let's jump into the next part of this conversation, and let's maybe step into the shoes of a game developer. Right now, we know we have the tools set up, we're all ready to rock. What are some of the things as an indie dev that I can maybe put my newsletter around if I don't want to go into the realm of creating these kind of highly analytical and highly deep dive games into what other people are doing?
Yeah. So first, it depends on your goal. Like if your goal is to get as many wishers as possible, that's going to be a very different strategy than if you're going more from like a personal branding kind of standpoint. So as an example of that second one, and I would say something like Substack is more strongly suited to that second point there. There's a guy that very recently reached out and was like, hey, we should recommend each other's blogs. You're one of the other top like game marketing things on, or not. His isn't about marketing, but like game focused Substacks. His is specifically about UI and UX. Actually, let me find this guy because this is a great reference for anyone in your audience to probably know. Indie Clem. So I'll quickly post his Substack is actually called A Good Interface, a great name. I'll put it in the chat here. So this is a great example of a good strategy that fits well with Substack. That's a bit more on the personal branding side. So he has a game that he is promoting and he's working on, but he's recognized the value that I have as well of providing value. And that's really what you want to do in your blog. And again, Substack is more of a blog. If you're doing a typical game newsletter, then very often you're more talking about updates of the game or announcements, like, hey, we have a playtest or something. If you're doing Substack, it's more of a blog. And in that sense, you're providing value in terms of education or entertainment. It's usually one of those two routes, right? Education is the easier one for most people. Entertainment, you know, you got to have something. You got to be funny, you're very skilled or whatever. And so what this guy's is, which I'd say is a great example, because he is a game dev who's working on his own game. It's called a good interface because he focuses on UI and UX in games. And similar to how I do case studies and I look at the marketing of games, he does case studies on Blatro and, you know, other games where he breaks down the like UI and UX and gives a bunch of tips on how you can do that in your own games and stuff. And in that, ever so often, multiple times, he throws a link to his own game, right? To promote his own game. But that's clearly not necessarily the overall purpose of his blog. This is definitely heavily in the like content marketing strategy, where you provide value and stuff, and your product is kind of, people find it by becoming a fan of you and like what you're selling and that kind of thing. So something like that works a lot better for Substack. The more traditional game marketing for like you're trying to get wish lists and engage your community and that kind of thing is really not Substack. That's usually more MailChimp and that kind of thing, where again it's playtest updates, it's game announcements, it's Victoria Tran, if you know who she is, she's done a lot of great advice and case studies and stuff on email marketing. She did an awesome one with Boyfriend Dungeon, for example. It's a famous one, or if you don't know what that is, it's a visual novel where you can I think you can date all the items, like the swords are, you know, guys you can date with a six-pack or whatever. Yeah, exactly. And a clever thing that they did with their newsletter is, you know, every newsletter was from the voice of one of the characters and their personality, and it was just they were talking to you and a bit of story there. So like that's super clever, very smart. That's something that will definitely grow your game, and kind of that's a smart strategy. So that's better than like the, you know, more classic stuff I just mentioned of just updates and stuff. So yeah, it depends on your strategy. I like Substack, and I think it fits well with you can think of it as the written version of the devlog. So if you're a solo dev, going this strategy is much more powerful because it's about you. And so like this guy, for example, now is kind of known for, he has great knowledge in UI and UX and that kind of thing, but it has the same pros and cons as like a devlog. The pros are, you know, it's easy to get people to care and to grow because you're providing value in some form. But the cons are, people often say, like, oh, are game devs your audience, right? Are those your players? Are game devs, are other game devs going to be the ones that wishlist and buy your game? And most people say like no, and to be cautious of that. But to be honest, I know so many examples of people that have really successful devlogs and stuff like that are clearly full of game devs, and they did well. I don't want to fall into the correlation is causation trap there. It might be coincidental, but so yeah, I think Substack is great if you're a solo dev and you want to go for a more personal branding and provide value in some way. But there's a big caveat that your game and the attention on that is taking a backseat. Alternatively, you can go the more traditional route, where I'd probably recommend something like MailChimp or HubSpot or Kits, where you're more direct marketing to a potential player and trying to get your player more involved over time. And that makes way more sense for a studio or also a solo dev. So it depends on your angle and your goal. What I like about the Substack route is there's things past just getting wish lists and stuff that you can grow from. You know, this might help in getting a publisher potentially, depending on what you're doing. If you're trying to get a job later, this could definitely help with that 100%. But for pure promotion of your game, I wouldn't recommend Substack, to be honest. I've come across a few. I can't think of any really popular Substacks, to be honest, that are just about game promotion. They're usually about content rather. So they're reviewing games as an example rather than talking about their own game. Because no one wants to read a big blog about your own game every week or a month.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if that answers the question.
Yeah, no, absolutely it does. So if I am then an indie dev So if I am an indie dev who does want to go the route of like, look, I come from a background as an artist, so yes, I'm currently creating my game and I will be talking about my game. I'll be posting it out on my, like, people can click into wish lists, get involved with what I'm building, but the value that I'm providing is going to be more so, I'm going to go and rate other games' art, right? I'm just giving an example there. Do you have any tips about something like getting over that initial imposter syndrome? And we kind of talked about it earlier, where you're a marketer of a few games, but you've never launched, and who am I, right? And I feel the same thing with freaking cool indies, and I'm sure a lot of people out there feel similar with whatever they are doing right now. So, any tips from that perspective of fears and imposters?
Yes, I mentioned that presentation I gave on everyone should do a blog, and I had a slide that was like imposter syndrome because it's one of the first things that's going to come up, right? It's huge, and especially because there will be blogs and devlogs and all this stuff that exists from these people that have been in the industry for 20 years and everyone knows their names and stuff like that, and it's like, why would you care what I'm saying? I think all you can do in that situation to kind of give yourself comfort is be honest with your audience, right? So like, just to make sure I'm not crazy, if I look at the about page of my sites, I think it says something like, it says who am I, and the first sentence is like, I haven't been the head of marketing for any super famous games or studios, I haven't done anything crazy, and I just like, I'm an underdog, I'm an indie marketer, just like you, right? So I think the first thing is framing. Don't try to pretend like you know everything, and any of that stuff. Just be honest about your experience, even if that's zero, right? Even if you're a student and you're listening to this, and I'm like, well, it sounds like a good idea, but I haven't worked anywhere. I have zero experience. Say that, right? Say, to use the example you gave. Say I'm a student in college studying arts. I want to learn. So I decided to do case studies on the art in other games, and I'm going to break them down and do that, right? So that's the first thing, is just like taking the framing and positioning yourself honest to where you are. I also, in that sense, would stay a little bit clear of reviews. So like when I talk about games, I don't necessarily say whether they're good or bad. There's certainly nothing wrong with constructive feedback and stuff, but you might earn enemies in the industry if you're like really review heavy, right? And you're like, oh, this game is shit and bad. And there are review based things, but then you need to lean into that. What you are is a content creator more than like a game dev in that sense. But like the art thing makes sense. And for that person, I would just be honest about who I am. And then in that sense, your two options to lean on is, that was why I started heavily, and I've moved away from it since because I've gotten more confidence, but I started heavily on case studies, because I'm not telling you, like, I didn't start with that indie survival guide, for example. I did that after a bunch of blog posts because I didn't feel the confidence, like, who am I to say you should do X, Y, Z, right? I don't have a game to back up this with that I've personally shipped or anything. But if I do case studies, I can just look at what others have done and shared it and give my thoughts on it. But it's there, and that data is there, so there's no one to be like, you're wrong. I'd be like, well, the data is right there. I'm clearly not wrong. It's what they did. Whereas, then I got that confidence, and now I kind of have that confidence and that backing to write something that is more just my opinion, and I can still collect stuff like that. So, so if I'm that artist, it would be the same thing. I can do case studies, but I can also just like break down my process, right? If I think my art is good, or I believe it's good, then like it's incredibly interesting to know how that art is made. So like for an artist, it'd be much easier. I could literally just show how I did this, why I chose to use this software over that software, or do this style, and in that sense, you might be going more for engagement. Not saying you should do this, but talk about why you did it on your iPad rather than on this Wacom tablet or whatever, then engage with people about why one is good over the other. I would do stuff like that. It's not going to be a problem as long as you're not like, you should do this, everyone's wrong, hot take, blah blah blah. Like, if you're authentic and honest, then you have nothing to worry about, and over time you'll get that confidence, because again, you'll have either random people or people that you respect basically telling you good job one form or another, and you're like, oh wow, okay, they're people just like I am. We all have to start somewhere, and then it slowly starts to click.
Yeah. So, again, so it's the oh my god, I cannot say this.
Objective.
Subjective and objective.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like it's kind of the steering away from the like this is my opinion, this is my thoughts, this is shit because I think it's shit, as opposed to like here's hard data of like, you know, why this game succeeded and not. And
that's easier in the beginning. There's nothing wrong with the, you know, having a strong opinion about something, and that makes for more interesting content later for sure. But especially in the beginning, it's easier to do something you can kind of tie to data or backing up or it, again, just showing your process and what's worked for you and kind of saying it in that form.
Yeah, I'm fully with you. I've seen a number of Reddit threads of the like, this is how you market a game, but there's no real data around it. It's more, let's say, going off of vibes and feelings, and like you read through the comments, and you're just like, man, I don't ever want to post a Reddit thread in my life.
Reddit is scary, man. It's been a great success, but it's also I've also still had tons of negative comments, and it's so hard to bite your tongue and not reply or just engage with it, right? I've had people like, why are you posting this? Why would anyone care? And it's like, dude, scroll past. Why did you care enough to stop and comment? Like, you don't open it then.
And
yeah.
And those are also the people who are like, no one's playing my game. And like, it's like, yeah, because you don't want to take in any form of advice of like, you know, if you agree with it, if you don't, that's one thing. But like, I think even just being open to the idea of it is like
absolutely
a whole other thing, right?
Yeah. So that's a good point too. I think positioning yourself, regardless of where you do this blog and stuff, of we're on a journey together to learn this thing rather than I'm teaching you. Also great if you don't have that back. If you do lean into that, right? If you've been in the industry 10 years or whatever, that's great. You can be like, I've shipped 3 titles. Here's why you should listen to me. That's a great hook, and people use that to like sell things and everything. But if you don't have that, then the next best thing is, you know, let's especially if it's education focused, let's learn together. Let's build a thing together. You see this a lot in devlogs, right? They're like, let's build an indie game together so we can learn together, and they go on a journey and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And those often can start that way, then they snowball, and then people find it just because it got big enough, and they're like, oh, this looks cool, then they wish it's your game, even though they're not your core audience, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And I think, you know, we've kind of touched upon it a handful of times of, you know, the blog versus, let's say, the general, like, follow my game. But I do think the let's do this together is a great way of creating an email newsletter where each week you're also bringing the audience in of like, this is what I learned this week. This is the obstacle that I overcame. This is what I'm you know, I didn't know how to shade and now I do, or whatever it ends up being. I think is a better way of just constantly being like, wish list.
Yes, I will warn, like, this is the strategy of the underdog and the solo dev and or very small team. It is not, I want to be clear with anyone that's watching, it's not what I'd recommend for maximizing wish lists. This is a overtime community building thing. I think it's very good for a solo dev because it's also very like motivating to kind of track your progress and have people engage with that and grow this community. It is not the best thing you could be doing for the end goal of growing wish lists. This is much more about personal branding and stuff. For again, the growing wish lists, I would not recommend the Substack blog style thing. For personal branding and things that come with that, yes. Yeah. So so it really depends on your goal.
Cool. Any other things that you want to touch upon, and more so in the realm of like when you do get a negative comment, you know, not letting it destroy you, and being able to kind of look at the 100 positive comments that you probably have gotten, and not that one person who.
I mean, this is going to be a humble brag, and I feel like now that I said this, I'm going to see this just tonight.
I'm posting this on Reddit right as soon as we finish.
Oh, please stop. Something I've heard about on Substack, which I don't know it's true because I haven't seen it, is apparently you also get an email ping when someone unsubscribes. Because I've seen people talking about how much that hurts when you see that, and I'm like, does that happen? Because I've never seen that email yet. And maybe it's just a setting. Maybe people are unsubscribing, and I just don't notice. But like that I've heard talked about a lot, and kind of how to deal with that, right? Obviously, if they're leaving in troves, you've done something wrong. You've missed your audience with some recent posts, or maybe you shouldn't have posted whatever crazy thing you did. But generally speaking, it's like when, you know, on even on Steam, people are gonna unwish list for various reasons, and it's very, very normal, even to like all of the most successful games. So I think there's a difference between when someone's coming at your product or your thing and coming at you. And those are two different things and different levels of tolerance. If someone's coming at your product, whether that be the blog itself, in my case, which is my product, right? I'm not trying to ship a game or anything, or it be your game, especially Reddit. People are going to be like, shit game, nobody cares, whatever. That is like it. It depends on what it is. And if you're talking like more traditional social media, like TikTok and stuff, I often won't delete it from like a community management standpoint. Like if someone just goes shit game, usually won't delete it. Because what's happened often, which is very cool, your fans or your evangelists will come and defend your game for you, which is a super cool moment to see. If it's something more specific that I can turn on its head, that has led to some really cool interactions. Like if someone was like, oh, there's this bug or something like that, and you lean into it in like a sarcastic way, and you're like, the classic joke, it's a feature, not a bug, or working as intended, or your mom, even depending on the humor of your game. Like if you can lean into it and have some fun with them and show that there's a human behind the screen. I've turned many negative comments into a positive engagement in the end, because you're not expecting that person to actually reply and be human and be funny or whatever. It totally depends on your humor and your branding and like what that thing is, of course. So yeah, the ones that are kind of just like negative with no bite, like who cares, just leave alone. The ones that are, if there's a way to turn it around or engage with them in a fun way, I take the opportunity. Obviously there's a hard line where I delete the comment if they like, call me the N-word, or if it has like a female employee in it and they're saying something gross or anything like that. Delete. Whether that be Discord, TikTok, whatever, you don't want that in your community, you should delete it, right? You don't want to delete every negative comment in the world because it doesn't look great either, especially if they just said shit game or something. But if they cross a line that's against like your values and your standpoint, that has no place. Don't reply either. Just delete, Discord, whatever, maybe even ban them and that kind of thing. From like a feeling standpoint, you just have to realize people are people, and haters gonna hate, and just that classic advice of it is what it is, especially Reddit. Reddit is again, great people on Reddit, but also a lot of keyboard warriors on Reddit. And when you have a problem with success, when you have like viral posts like the few I've had with the blog go kind of viral, you're going to get hopefully mostly good stuff, but you're also going to get a lot of people that are like, the F is this? My game's not on there, why? And you're like, well, you didn't read the filtering thing clearly. And so like ones where I could engage in a meaningful way, I would, but other ones that you just ignore. And sometimes you just don't have time. So yeah, you just take it comment by comment, do what makes sense, do what feels right. The worst thing you can do is to ever reply in a heated way. That's always the worst option. There's no route that looks good where you're like, no, you suck. No, you whatever. Like that's no version of that ever goes or does well. Like if it's deserving of that kind of reply, then you should probably just delete that comment, right? But usually getting defensive or retaliating is always going to go bad, and you see that a lot on Reddit. People get very, like, from the post owner, they get very defensive. So I highly recommend like not doing that. You can explain why you did something, whatever, if it's something specific, but yeah, don't get defensive. Delete really horrible ones, and otherwise just try to have thick skin, because it's part of the game. If you put something online, people are going to hate on it. Hopefully most people don't, but it is what it is.
Yep. Love it. Yeah. Love it. And I do totally agree on that, especially the don't fight back defensively, because then it makes it so much easier for so many other people to just jump in, and like now you're all of a sudden the villain and the bad guy, and it's like you just don't do it. Don't do it there. But I do agree with the unsubscribe stuff. I think from an unsubscribe perspective, I personally think of it as like pruning a plant. You have to kind of take away, and a lot of the times, especially as your email list grows and grows, it's actually good to like prune out people who haven't opened your emails in the last 6 months and kind of who are not interacting, because that also helps to boost your numbers, and to not even just from a vanity perspective, but it helps you from a email deliverability standpoint and all that type of stuff, because Google and all the different platforms like Gmail, whatever I'm trying to say, they look at that type of stuff, right? If you send out an email and no one opens it, then it's not looks good for you, and from your domain perspective.
I think that's a 100% true. Even for smaller numbers, I think it's valuable, because, for example, if I'm looking at my open rate and stuff, and it turns out I just have a lot of dead subscribers who haven't opened anything in months. That's not useful data for me. It messes up the data because now I don't know if it's my content is not interesting whereas if I pruned it, as you're saying, and I only included someone that had opened at least 2 in the last 6 months or something, then I can know from like my next 3 posts, okay, why did this one get opened more than this one, that kind of thing. And you're talking about the domain name thing. That's really important and something that should be mentioned with the email marketing. If you go and you just make a brand new Gmail, I made an email for the OP game marketing, like a Gmail that's separate, so I can like have that when I interact with people like you, for example. If I wanted to reach out to a dev to talk with them about their game, and I ran into this exact problem you're talking about because it was brand new and hadn't been used or something. It went straight to spam. I tested it, sending it to my friends and stuff, straight to spam. So I ended up having to use my personal email. So it's an important thing that you do need to warm up the email and stuff. And for these services, it's often common that in the welcome email you will ask people to like reply to the message or do something else to teach the email inbox that this is not spam. Because then you have a big problem, right?
Great. Another pro tip there. Again, it's like you'll not only when people sign up, typically they'll have to double authenticate, so they'll get the email and like, yes, I did in fact sign up for this email one. But a really, really good pro tip is, especially let's say in your welcome email sequence, whatever you want to do is, hey, like, again, why did you sign up for this? Or like whatever prompting question you want, because if the Gmail is seeing that people are not only opening it, but this is getting a reply, that's going to build a positive, like, okay, this domain is like, we're okay, right? And let these emails flow through and let them not go to spam or let them not go to whatever inbox you don't want them to go.
Absolutely. A really cool human one I've seen that I like a lot. Again, I'm a big fan of the underdog solo dev. This is more a strategy for them than for the like big company. But it's really common to have these reply to this automated email thing. Having a line in there, I've seen this much twice and I've loved it, of like, hey, can you reply to this email to teach your inbox is not spam? I'm a real person. I'm going to read this. I will read your reply. So if you can tell me why you subscribe or whatever, I'd really appreciate it, because I'm going to read this. I'm not a robot, right? Because we're so used to that, just replying and going blah, 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 blah on the keyboard, rather than saying, oh, I joined because of that. So and that's a 2-for-1 thing. It kind of gives a good impression of your blog, but also, you might actually get some good data about why this person subscribed, which is very, very cool. Yeah.
Love it. Well, Jordan, do you have, for someone new coming onto your amazing blog, do you have a personal favorite? If you had to steer a brand new person to your favorite article, which one are we posting?
My favorite article. Oh man. Let me take a quick gander, quick look here. That is hard. I probably, the one that makes the most sense is, I have done a few where I've interviewed game devs. I always love those because it's just cool making new connections and hearing from the people themselves about how they've done things. And again, I tend to focus on like really small teams or solo devs are my favorite, because it's just like so many people want to live that solo dev dream. And so talking to the ones that have hit that goal is really, really fun. But from a value standpoint, I think the indie survival guide I mentioned is probably one of the best. And honestly, it needs an update. I wrote that in October, and Steam has changed a few things, and I've learned some new things, so I need to give that another pass. But still, it remains like it's pinned on my top of my blog, because like the most common thing I see on Reddit every week is just someone suddenly dawning on them that they need to learn to market their game. And outside of just posting on Twitter or whatever people think marketing is, this is what I'd point to as the like, here is a one-page thing on how to do this, right? Because very often, like, people will comment, oh, go read Chris from How to Market the Game, who's awesome, and he subscribed to my blog, and I was like, I had like, oh my god, I fangirled out. That's very cool. I've never actually interacted with him, but the moment I see him next at like GDC or something, I'm definitely gonna say hello. So then that's great advice. Go read Chris's blogs; they're fantastic. But that's still like, there's a lot to read from and stuff there. So I like this post because it was just this one. If you just are totally lost and you want to know the top most effective things to do, bam, 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 here you go, which is nice. So that's probably my favorite, because it's a lot of people are just kind of stuck at the starting line and they don't know what they should be focused on or what they should do. Whereas the other ones are like more deeper dives, which are cool. But a lot of people just need to know the like hallmarks, if that makes sense. And that's nice to have there. Yeah.
Love it. I love it. And lastly, here at Freaking Cool Indies, I personally find it very important to pay it forward and for us to continue shouting from the rooftop and giving props to different indie devs and indie creators out there. So is there any current game, whether one that you're playing, one that's coming out, one that you are very hyped and anticipated about that you wanted to shout out and and let our audience know?
Yeah, that's good. So the game I've been playing, that's, again, I'm a big indies fan. Outside of, I mentioned I play a lot of League of Legends. It's certainly not indie, but I like League.
It's a small game. You might have heard of it, you know?
Small indie game company, Riot. I've been playing a lot of Haste Broken Worlds, which I've highly enjoyed. Do you know that game?
Let me pull it. Haste Broken.
It's from one of my favorite game studios, Landfall Games. I love the way that they do things. I'm also quite interested in like the biz dev of game studios and how they run things. And Landfall Games is a really cool business strategy and marketing strategy about how they make their games. They're an indie studio. I think they probably are somewhere between 0 and 50 people, so they're not like tiny. But they, that's it right there. It's a great example of like a small in scope, very well polished game that's it's really easy to hop on and off. It's basically like a modern, no offense to Nintendo, cooler take on Sonic. Or is that Sega, not Nintendo? Anyways, so you can see the kind of Sonic vibes a bit, right? But it's super fun. The music is banging. Their marketing was fantastic, which again I'm a huge nerd on. So there's that. My company would yell at me if I didn't mention our own game. We're working on a game called Project Lost Island right now, which is it's a Steam PC VR game. We do hope to eventually have a PC version. The main kind of comparison there is Half-Life Alyx was a big motivation for us. It's like a high fidelity PC VR horror game set in Norway. Very, very cool. And that's our game that we're working on now, and you're gonna see some stuff in the press about that soon.
Oh, very cool. Hot
the
take.
Trailer we made.
Here first on Freaking Cool Indies. I love that.
Yeah.
Both of these look phenomenal. Very, very, very cool.
Very different, right? One is colorful and bright and cheery, and the other one is dark horror.
It's definitely a bit of a different vibe. There might not be too many overlapping from a general audience standpoint, but hey, both of them look very cool in their own right.
Yeah, you don't have a lot of control over what you're marketing all the time. Ironically, when I applied to this studio, they were working on this adorable VR puzzle game called Kartoffel that had these really cute little potato characters, and it was adorable, cozy, cute puzzle game. And that's what I was hired for and kind of saw. Then suddenly, I'm marketing a horror game, and now I'm having to record content and make a trailer for a horror game. It's just like, God damn it, this was not in the initial contract.
That's wicked.
But it's been fun. Yeah,
I love it. Well, Jordan, we'll end it there, sir. Thank you so much. This was what a phenomenal episode. This has been an absolutely amazing talk, and I'm very excited for everyone to hear this one, because again, there's just so much to pick out of it and learn and grow from. And once again, everything from Jordan's side, the links to his website, go check out his Substack. It will all be in the description. And I very much look forward to the next article. Hopefully coming out soon. Fingers crossed.
Hopefully soon. Yeah, this has been, I think, the longest break we've had. We had the Easter break here in Norway, which is a long break, but I'm back, and I'm just about done with the next one, so hopefully there will be another one soon.
Awesome. And again, as soon as the new one comes out, I will be posting that in the Freaking Cool Indies newsletter. Of the resource of the week is going to be coming. Awesome. Is going to be coming from you in that newsletter as soon as it goes live.
Cool. Thank you, Mike.
Anytime, my friend. Well, with that, everyone, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, evening, morning, wherever and whenever time you are listening and consuming this awesome content. And once again, Jordan, officially, you are a freaking cool indie. So congratulations, my friend.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Mike. See ya.